Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Small and Rural Library Forum Meetup. Today, we are going to be talking about policies. We have Betsy Adamowski from the Wheaton Public Library and Jim Deiters from Joliet Public Library. They're going to tell you a little bit about themselves. This is really a low-key conversation, so don't hesitate to jump in with your questions, raise your hand, share your experiences. We want to make sure that this is valuable for you and where you are in your organization and in your work with policies. So I will go mute and off camera, and I will turn it over to Betsy and Jim.
Okay. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Betsy Adamowski, and I am the Executive Director for the Wheaton Public Library. Some of you may have remembered me from Directors University. So welcome back, and we're excited to do this presentation. Jim?
Yeah, hey, Jim Deiters, Deputy Director at Joliet Library. And as Betsy and Kristen both said, yeah, we're super happy to be with you. Yeah, this is maybe not the most stimulating of topics, but a pretty vital one. So we'd like to go through it with you, and you'll just kind of hear our opinions. And as Betsy said, if you've got any questions, feel free. I'm sure Kristen will be looking at the chat as well, and we'll try to answer those questions kind of on the run.
Okay. Before we get started, as always, we'd rather be in a room than on Zoom. But we obviously see the benefits of doing this program. So while I can't see all of you, I certainly just want you to think of a couple of questions. And first of all, I want you to think about how many of you in a normal room, I'd say, how many of you have great policies? And then we'd see a big raise of hands. So just think about it in your head. How many of you think you have great policies? And then the other question comes, of course, Laura Keys with her hand up there. Awesome, Laura. And then I also want maybe some of you ask yourselves, do you even know where your policies are? And I know that's probably not true for this group because some of you may have been a director for a while or in your role for a while, but sometimes in Directors University, it's amazing how some people are like, we don't even know that. So today, before we get moving, Kristen's going to switch the slides for us, but our goals for today is that we want to be able for you to walk away with what is the policy, who writes the policies, where you can find some examples, and then of course what policies to have. So we're just gonna start so that we have lots of time for any questions or things like that you might have. So as always, first and foremost, you and your staff should be creating and cultivating your policies. And of course, as you're doing this, you want to make sure that your policies make sense to your library and to your community. This truly is an important slide because when Jim and I can remember the days where, when a library built a new policy, we all just adopted the same policy, whether we needed it or not. We have since learned as library directors, as we got older and wiser, that public libraries are not cookie cutter. What works for one community does not work for another community. So I encourage you to start with, if you are at that starting line, to take your policies out, look at them, and decide which ones you are going to sunset and get rid of, which ones you feel need to be better, and of course, which ones you are going to keep. And you'll be, I'm going to guess like me, when I started here, I was amazed at how many I didn't need. They didn't mean anything to the Wheaton Library. I don't know why they were just in there taking up room in the binder, but clean it up and make sure that your policies are what your community and your library needs. Jim, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, just exactly what you said, that just because, so-and-so library next door or, whatever, doesn't mean that your library necessarily has to have that same policy, or perhaps you don't need to have that policy in the same format as the one next door. So yeah, take a look at it, just because, you know, we'll show you later. We're going to give you some, Betsy and I are going to give you some examples from our libraries. And again, just because we have them or they exist doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have them. You guys have to really do your work. And when we talk about you, we don't mean you, the director. We mean you and your team. If you have a team, you know,
Okay, I
those
don't know
people
if
that work on the
Emily
front
told you,
lines
but the yoga
often
that they had
know
scheduled for
way
November
better
6th, they're just
than
canceling.
you know, us that are in the, maybe in the office. So just depending on your situation at your library, it definitely has to make sense for you and yours.
Betsy and Jim, did you see the question in the chat from Sherry? She asks you, can you give an example of a policy that you sunset?
Yes, and I got to think of it.
I have to, I'm gonna look and see, I wonder if there's a way that I can see these questions. Hold on a second. Oh, okay, so an example, well, I can go right into Laura Keys's about the dress code. When I got here in Wheaton, a lot of you know this, this example, but our dress code, was so old that it says that, it stated that, bras were required by women in the library. The dress code was so outdated, men were, it stated in there, were allowed to wear wash pants. Now, we didn't even know what wash pants were. So that was a perfect example of a policy that we were like, oh my gosh. And we basically rewrote the dress code policy. Now, and I see you're asking us, is there a way to sunset a policy? I honestly, my previous director really didn't even get ours approved. It was such a weird dynamic. If you have a policy that has been approved by your board, I suggest you maybe take it back to the board to say, hey, we reviewed this, it is no longer needed, and you put it in your, on your agenda to remove it from your policy manual so that it's on the record in your minutes.
Yeah, for sure. I would back that up. Like, yes, because a policy is a board approved entity. It's a, you know, the board has gone through, evaluated and approved it at a public meeting. So yes, to remove it, to sunset it, it has to then be removed by the board. Otherwise, it's still functioning policy that you have. But I got a couple quick examples that just came to mind about sunsetting. A lot of libraries used to have like fine free for military. Because so many libraries have gone fine free, there's no need to have that. So many libraries used to, and some might still do, have like special circulation rules for board members. And we all kind of, over the years, kind of gently agreed that, you know, board members shouldn't be treated any different than a member of the public. They're not supposed to be getting any kind of special privileges. And one quick note, but this is back to when I was at the Oak Lawn Library, it's not really sunsetting, but definitely was a need for a change. Obviously, we have our no guns in the, no weapons in the building stickers on almost every door at every public library. But technically, if you are a sworn law enforcement officer, you can have a gun in any public building. So just, again, just a weird little anomaly, but I was told in no uncertain terms that I couldn't just have a policy that said no guns in the library, because technically sworn law enforcement officers can come into your building on duty or off duty with a gun on them. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're gonna keep on going because we're only on the first slide.
All right, so I'm up. We're talking about policy or procedures, and this is one of my kind of bugaboos. So, procedures are the step-by-step processes that typically your staff would follow to A, get a library card, or B, to sign somebody up for Libby, or what are those kind of steps? And usually it's multiple pages, right? It tells you kind of bit by bit by bit in a numbered fashion or alphabetical or whatever, how you go about it's a procedure. And those are not for the board to approve, right? Those are things you're keeping in-house that you guys do to make sure you can get the work done you need to get done. Policies are a very different animal. Policies are something that's kind of the law of the library, and the board must approve those. So typically, it would be you, the leader of the library, talking with your frontline staff saying, hey, we need a policy about this, or we have a policy about this, but it needs to be changed. Let's make our recommendation and bring it before the board. Then the board approves that in whatever fashion and process that they go through to create and improve policies. So two very different things. Procedures in-house, multiple pages, numbered, alphabetized, however you go through the steps. Board doesn't approve those. That's just how you get your work done. Policies should be short and sweet, say what you can do, what you cannot do, and the board must approve those, okay? So yeah, just, pay attention to the difference, because I don't see it as much anymore, but definitely in the past, we used to often mix up our procedures with our policies, and they're very two different things. Yes, you need procedures so a new person can figure out how they, the steps they need to go through to get something done. Policies are a different thing. There's 15 or 20 of those for the public end of the library, and that's board approved stuff. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah, I hope so. If not, send a question or a chat, but two different animals, policies and procedures. Next slide. Go ahead, Kristen. Why a policy? And again, policy, if you already have a set of these policies at your place, then you just have to kind of go through that bit by bit by bit and see if something needs to be changed, right? Often, though, and this is the hard part, is like why we create laws, right? We create a policy because something bad happened, and now we've got to figure out a way to answer that the next time that bad thing might happen. So unfortunately, it does happen that policies often get created reactively because something happened, and now we've got to have to create a policy. But more often than not, you have something like that, and then now you've got to tweak it to update it. But yeah, it just kind of I'll give an example. The First Amendment audits, a lot of our libraries, right, had policies about you can't videotape me in the library, you can't record me in the library. But technically, we've all learned with First Amendment audits, you can. So our policy at Joliet Public Library, when I got here 3 years ago, it said you can't record patrons, you can't record staff in the library. But we all know that's not true. You can. You're in a public building, as long as you're not looking at what they're checking out or looking at, recording what they've got on their computer, that kind of thing. They can be recorded in a public building. So just some of those things that we have to be aware of as far as that goes. Again, reactionary, a policy. We had this is back in the day at Oak Lawn. We had our doors were set up. You're not supposed to have this in a public building, but our building was set up long north-south, and we had doors east and west straight across this open lobby. So I guess there was kind of a rash at one time of teenagers at one time that were on their bikes or on their whatever they had at that time, skateboards, and they were wheeling their way through because they could just from door to door, and we just had sliding doors. So we had to create this policy about no bikes or skateboards and such in the library. But again, it was probably a reactionary thing. We had to create it, and then it died down, and the kids weren't doing it anymore, and probably, it could have been sunsetted. So they do kind of come and go, and sometimes, unfortunately, you create a policy because of a specific incident. But remember, you can't make a rule for everything. There's going to be something that comes up. So don't feel like you have to have 75 policies, because things will come up, and you don't not try to create a policy for anything and everything that the patrons will come up with. I did see a question pop up. And if we can go back to that, maybe Kristen, let's see what we got.
I saw the one on the archiving of policies. As you change and amend, I do recommend you just create a folder that says archive policies, and then you just drop your old ones in there, just so you have it. But you keep a master, like with just the current ones that are in operation in a master place for you and your staff to see.
And that's a good question. I'll jump onto what Betsy said there. I'm the one that early on in my career, I would just get rid of stuff. Like, okay, we're done with it, get rid of it. But just as Betsy said there, I would say this last round when Joliet went through and cleaned up our policies, often want to go back and take a look at, okay, why did we have this policy before? What did it used to say? So I would now, because everything's electronic, it's easier. You can just say, hey, create a folder that says old policies and dump everything in there, and then just have your current one up on your shared drive, whatever that might be. But yeah, I would definitely, as Betsy said, keep your old ones, because you often need to peek back just to say, did we used to do this, or why did we change this, or that kind of thing. So it's a good idea to keep them around somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. There was another question. Do you generally differentiate between procedures and practices? I mean, if you have a procedure for a policy, yes, you want to remove that procedure out into a separate manual or what have you, if that's something that you feel is you need for your staff. Like sometimes it's even consequences of if you don't follow a policy or things like that. But the policy can be as simple as there is no smoking on the library campus, period. And if you need to expand that for any reason, you certainly can in a different place.
Hey, Beth, since you brought that up, that's something I learned kind of on the job too with smoke. So we were going around and around with, okay, the way our building was set up, we had a sidewalk that was a public sidewalk that went around most of the building. Can we tell people they can't smoke there, and so on and so forth? Again, this is the part that you learn just over time. There's a law about public buildings in Illinois about, I think it's 15 feet away from the door. So you don't have to create some brand new thing. The law already exists. You can just take the wording from the Illinois law and put it in and create that, in your policy. So sometimes you have to think back. And I saw a question up there about law, right? If there's a law out there, an Illinois statute, obviously that law supersedes anything we create at a public library as far as one of our policies. So do take a look, make sure you're not conflicting with any state laws, but sometimes it saves you a bunch of work, because the smoking example, again, it's already addressed for public buildings. I think it's 15 feet from the doorway. So.
Mm-hmm. And last thing before we move on, I just want to remind you that your board approves policy. They do not need to approve procedure.
Correct.
So just keep that in mind. All right, we'll have the next screen. All right, so remember that the director drafts the policy. And if you have a larger staff, I know these are small libraries, so some of you may be a one-man show, but if you do have staff members that can participate in drafting a policy with you, I highly encourage you to include them if you can. And remember that it's the board that approves the policy. Some boards think they're drafting the policy. No, that's not the way it should be. If it's currently working that way in your library, if you can wean them away from that, that would be great, but do it slowly, do it very slowly. But technically, the director should be doing all the homework. That's what you're paid to do all the homework, get that policy together in the best shape, way, and form that you can, and then present it to your board for approval.
Yeah, I see a question up there from Kathleen about records retention. So you're probably right. If you already have records retention on file with the state of Illinois, then you've got to follow whatever the rules are. So that's something to look into, Kathleen and everybody. Some libraries have never gotten themselves on record. I was at a library one time that never had gone through the process of having records retention come in, do an evaluation, and I forgot what the log is kept. It's a formalized paper that they keep on you in your library kind of thing about what records you have. But if you've never created one, and that's why it's important to check into it, you could go ahead and just get rid of essentially everything. And I say that very loosely, but there are things you probably have to keep. But if you've already got records retention on file with the state of Illinois, then you have to follow there, and you have to go through the process if you want to get rid of everything to making that request of getting stuff to removing them from your list of records that you keep for your public library. So good call, Kathleen. Yep.
All right, next slide. All right, next slide, Kristen. Oh, there you go.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. So this is a big thing with policy making, and again, I hate to say it, but it's like, we often create policies almost in a reactionary way. Something, happened. Now we've got to create this. Don't do this, do this kind of thing. And, but just make sure that you're not creating barriers. And that's why I would say, and I think Betsy just mentioned this, it shouldn't just be one person in a solo in a room creating that policy. I've got 5 managers that I work with directly, and I don't, I'm not the one that's at the front desk all the time. I'm not the one that's, leading a story time. I'm not the one that's doing a book club. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. So you want to have them in. So even though we said, the director creates policies, again, it's not just the director. Again, unless you're running the place solo, if you are, God bless. But, if you've got a team, you should be getting their input, and they should be helping you, and they should be like, if you propose something, they should be reviewing it so that you're not creating any barriers to access to, resources, whatever it is. So as you create policies, we know we're trying to do that to kind of keep people from acting incorrectly, but make sure it's not so bad that you're creating barriers to the things you're trying to provide. So how will this affect operations is something to always take a look at, as you look and change your policies. Okay, I'm done with that. Oh, we can go to life cycle then.
Let's go right to the next one. Yeah.
Okay, the life cycle. So yeah, as we were just saying, under that second one there, the director drafts a policy. And so again, it should be staff in that development. And then it also should be clear and it should be concise. Again, it's not a procedure. It's just, this is what you can do. This is what you cannot do. And that's it. Boom. And if you have an issue with this policy, then call Betsy and her email or whatever. So it's just boom, boom, boom. Policies shouldn't be, circulation policies are usually the longest. Sometimes, your collection development policy might be 2 or 3 pages, that kind of thing. Everything else is best you can, half a page, 3/4 of a page. It doesn't need to be wordy. It just is like very clear as to what you cannot do in the library, with the library's resources, on our website, whatever the case might be. So I wanted to go over this, the director drafts. So what I learned, I've been here at Joliet for 3 years, and they really like the process of the board I'm talking about for their approvals, is a 2-month process. So for us to actually change a policy or introduce a new policy, it really takes about 3 months. Now, this might not work for you. You guys might want to just get business done and you bring it in front of them. They read it on a Tuesday, and Thursday is your board meeting, and then you approve it. But our board here really likes, and they're a great board, but they like to have a 2-month process. So what we do is we start with the staff. Something new comes up or we want to make a revision, somebody brings it forward. We talk about it with staff. Here's what we want it to look like, and then, I give it to my executive director, whatever the case may be. Then the board gets it. Let's say it's April. The board gets it in their board packet for a first reading. That's when they go through it. They ask a few questions if there are any, and that's a first read. So it's on the agenda, not as an action item. It's just a review. And then May, when they come back, that's when they would approve it. So it's kind of like a 3-month process for changes and new policies here at Joliet. It slows things down, but it's a good process so that everybody knows what the heck we're talking about, that kind of thing. So, and then the last thing is just making sure it's regularly reviewed.
Okay. I would like to add to that, as part of our life cycle of a policy, is that once we get through the whole process and the board approves it, and then that's Monday night. Our meetings are third Monday night. Tuesday morning, I have a department head meeting, so then I tell my department heads about the change. We put it on the website for the public to see. We do not keep any paper copies of our policies here at the Wheaton Library. We found that the less paper that we had, the less changes that we had to make. So whatever goes on the website is the official policy. And that has been a saving grace across the board. So we all of us know that we're looking at the right policy, the most up-to-date policy. all the time. That includes the board members, the community, and of course, my staff. So if that's something that you think you can adopt, I highly encourage you to do that and stop it with all these binders. And it's just more confusion than anything else. So just a piece of advice from me.
I'm gonna jump in there, Betsy, just because I'm laughing because exactly what you said makes tons of sense. But we just went through last year all of our policies that are our public policies, and now they're there and they're live on our website and all that good stuff. But when we talked to frontline staff, they wanted to have, we didn't have this in place. They wanted to have a paper copy of the latest versions at the desk in a binder. So we're actually going full circle and adding the binders back into the mix. So again, it has to work for what your library wants. But our staff members said, it's great that it's on the website, but we'd like to have it in paper. So there you go.
No. We have a download. So when they open up the policy, they can download it. So if a department head really wants it, he or she is downloading them all on her own and creating her own binder. That takes the pressure off of me and my staff. So no paper copy for me. All right, the next screen, I guess. Oh, here we go with questions or comments. I think we've been doing a good job with keeping up with your questions. Is there anybody that wants to use this time, or should we keep on going?
Hey, Bets, I was just going to throw out there, I scribbled on my paper copy here in front of me. I'm going to give out, if anyone's listening, I'm going to give out my work phone number here. Because if you have, you can always email me, you can email Betsy, that kind of thing. But if you wanted to talk and you didn't feel like looking me up or Googling it. Anyway, my phone number here, I'll put it in the
chat.
Here, 815, I'll put it right in here. 846-6519. That's me at Joliet if you ever needed to ask questions about this or anything else.
If you need me, call me. My phone number's on the Wheaton Public Library website. So, they're asking me, what type of software does your library use to build the website? Yeah, I don't know. All I know it was the cheap one. And I can... Jenny, if you want to email me, please do, and I can ask my deputy director which one it was, but I know it was a library one, and it was not, from what I understand, it was not expensive. So I'll send that out to you guys. Yeah, I just work here. I don't do this stuff. No, I'm just kidding. All right, next screen. Okay, so characteristics of an effective policy. Oh yeah, Kristen's laughing, these are some important points, and I am going to kind of read through some of them. So the characteristics of a policy, so make sure that your policy aligns with your library's vision and mission. If you are a welcoming destination, and you're going to welcome everybody, then you better make sure that your policies are very open in that. Avoid conflict with library plans and goals. So if you are going to say, I'm trying to think of something, if you decide to open all Sundays for the year, make sure that you have a policy that has that change of the day in there. We since have relaxed our dress code completely. I'm just glad they come dressed. And honestly, I have found that my staff is dressing better when they're comfortable. And so we are, there's no shorts, and obviously common sense. So make sure though, we have a cafe, so food and drink, of course, are allowed in the library. It would be silly for me to say no food or drink when I have a cafe. So make sure that your policy is in line with the entire library of what you're doing. Adhere to the federal, state, and local laws. And when we say local laws, for some of us, that may be ordinances. So, you may have an ordinance where it says no smoking on public, spaces, so that includes the library. So make sure that your policy is also in support of whatever ordinances you might have. You want to blend, make sure that your policy blends with your library's other policy statements without contradictions. We already talked about that a little bit. Make sure that your policy treats all people with fairness and consistency. And so you don't want to have your one thing that says sleeping's not allowed, but the other thing that says, you know, it is allowed. And so make sure that your policies are in line. Make sure that your policies are clear guidance to the director and to the staff, so they know how to implement the policy, and they can do it successfully. We are now in the midst of rewriting our meeting room policy, because we are getting requests from some groups to use our meeting room, and we're realizing that there are definitely some issues involved. And the people that run the meeting rooms are like, oh, we never paid attention to that. And I'm like, well, you have to start paying attention now. And so we're really enforcing some of our rules on the meeting rooms. Make sure that your policies protect the rights of your employees and treats them with fairness and equity. And this goes into our personnel policy as well, but also with the public policy. Some of us have a lot of customers that come in, and while we want the customer to be safe, we also want the staff to feel safe. So make sure that your conduct rules are protecting both. Make sure that your policy establishes an overall direction without including procedures. We already talked about that. Also, make sure that your policy reflects best public library practices. And I know we're all struggling right now with the First Amendment in our privacy laws and things like that. While I'm all for protecting our First Amendment, right now in Wheaton, I'm more concerned about the safety of my staff in what we're dealing with here. So make sure that your policies are reflecting good public library practices. And also make sure that your policy encourages informed and active decision-making by anticipating problems. You don't want to create a policy after the problem. You want to make sure you have your policy in place before the problem. Thank God we have a strong meeting room policy that's saving us right now with the situation. However, we see there definitely is places where we can tighten it up. So we're hoping that we will have that by the beginning of 2025. So those are some basic characteristics. I know I went through them pretty quickly, but that is what has been with us. Jim and I have been doing this now, and we still think this is a really good slide. Jim, anything on this, or you want me to go ahead?
No, I think you hit it off.
All right.
Cool. All right. So policies evolved. So as it said, right, these are something that you can change in 1 month. You can change it in 2 months, whatever the practice is at your place. Just get the board to approve it if something needs to be changed. So be keeping an eye on it. And the way you would do that, I would recommend is you have a calendar. So you'll see again in a slide or 2 or 3 when we share our Wheaton's and Joliet's kind of schedules and what our policy books look like. I would say take a look at that. So what we do is let's say it says in December, the staff looks at such and such a policy. It doesn't mean that you're changing that policy. They're just reviewing it. So typically the staff, the management, the director, you're taking a look at, whatever it is, your policy is about, we'll use Betsy's example of the meeting rooms. If it came up as a December thing on your board, on your policy calendar, then you just be looking at it and to see if there's anything that needs to get changed. So usually what I do is I see that in December we have X, Y, and Z policy. I send that to my management team, say, hey, give this a read through. Is there anything that you notice that needs to get changed? If I don't hear anything back from them, then I just tell my executive director, hey, nothing needs to be changed. And so nothing goes on the agenda for the board meeting because it's good as is. But you got to be keeping an eye on it. So you can't just approve it and then 7 years later, let's take a look at those policies again. You should be looking at them on a regular basis. And an easy way to do that is to set up some kind of schedule or calendar to take a look at it. And I know other people just look at all of them every 3 years, different ways, but I kind of like the ongoing, keeping an eye on them, just month after month, skipping over maybe the holiday month or when you get your budget approved or that kind of thing, kind of stay away from those busy months. But the rest of the months, everyone could just be keeping an eye on to see if there's something that needs to be touched. So even if nothing's happened, dramatic in the library, at least you're keeping an eye on things so that you don't get a very dated policy book all of a sudden.
And Jim, I'm going to add really quickly to this one, because this happened in the library when vaping became, and then of course marijuana became illegal. I immediately was like, whoa, do I need to, do something? Luckily for me, the Wheaton's local ordinance address both of those topics. So I was able to just reference the ordinance for the library. So, you never know when that's gonna help you out. So anyway, all right, so next slide. Now I'm running, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 2:40 already, Jim. We gotta keep going. So the next two slides are just policies that we suggest you have. Not all of them are gonna mean anything to you. Some of them may be worded differently. We call it patron conduct rules. There may be some in here that you just don't even need to have, but these are just some things you can think about. And this particular slide is what I call the public policies. And you will see we have the ALA ones in there. So that's something that we have been doing since I came here in 2013. And I love these because it puts me and the board on the same page as to what we value. And it shows the community that we will follow the American Library Association Bill of Rights, especially with this freedom to read issues. The next slide is more about the personnel policies. We are not going to go into details on these policies. That's a whole nother program. But these are just some that Jim and I, have used within our libraries. Again, maybe don't mean anything to you, but just some things to think about if you need a little checklist or something. We now do DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, over all of our policies, meaning that we just went in each policy and we just made sure that we had the right, and nothing said he or she, and we made sure that we were as inclusive as possible with our wording. So if that's something that you guys want to think about, if that's important to you, that is something that, you certainly can do.
I'll say just two quick things on this one, Bets. As I'm looking at it on the computer, personal appearance, and you mentioned this about at Wheaton, we did that here at Joliet, even though you can see pretty formal. I still wear a tie most every day to work. But we heard from staff that they really wanted the dress code kind of brought down, and it's been a win. When we redid our employee handbook, we brought down the requirements of the dress code, and people have been very, very happy with that. So, if that's something you can change and it would make a better workplace for your staff, do so. And then tuition reimbursement, we just were able to do that this last year, and that's been a big win as well. So I know that's a money thing, the dress code's not, but if you can add in some kind of CE payment or tuition reimbursement payments, those are some big wins for your staff. So, okay, we can go on to the next one, Kristen.
Okay, so the next couple slides are some examples for you to look for samples of policies. I'll be honest with you, I just copy other libraries. I tend to like Deerfield. I have had success with Champaign for whatever reason. And I kind of search around other libraries of library directors that I like. I kind of figure out Elmhurst is another good one, Skokie. So I tend to go there, and then I start with that. But these are certainly some places that have samples that you certainly can look at and start to build some ideas and thoughts on how to frame a policy. My policies are on the website. My public policies are. My internal policies, which are my employee policies, are not. If anybody's interested in those, you certainly can email me, and I'll be happy to share them. The next slide.
Hey, Betsy, I'll just say too, though, for whatever reason, when I was looking at, you mentioned borrowing from other libraries. The Kent Library District in Michigan, I think that's who I stole just a template to get going for Joliet. So again, as Betsy said, you can go out there and find them. You don't have to recreate the wheel. We would be more than willing to share things with you. But if you just want to Google it, Kent Library District in Michigan's got a good setup.
Yes, the news serving our public, Jenny, will be downloadable. Yay! So we are, you're gonna love it. So yeah, once it's finished, we'll be looking forward to your comments on that. I'll be talking to you, I guess, on standards at some point with this group. We are working on a date to get that going. So, all right. The next one is this administrative ready reference, which I introduced to the standards committee when I had, January 9th. Oh yeah, we got a date. My calendar's marked. This administrative ready reference is something that I hope all of you would take a moment at some point in your time to take a peek at. Some of my committee members on the standards had never heard of this before. But this actually is it is an official Illinois State Library website. And if you go there, it does have some policies on there that you certainly can look at and use. So just another resource if you're not familiar with it. It is kind of a nice site. So take a look at it if you can. All right.
I think the next slide I think is Joliet's, and then the one after this is Wheaton's. So this is pretty brand new. In 2023, we went through, so we had almost every one of these policies already existed for Joliet. I'd say, yeah, almost all of those, maybe one or two or three we added in. They existed, but we weren't looking at them. They all got created, and some were 3 years old, some were 5 years old, some were 7 years old, so we just had kind of this mishmash, and we didn't have a plan for how to take a look at it. So using the Kent Library District's schedule, I think I kind of stole and made into one for Joliet. I don't have, as you can see at the top of the list, as many of Betsy has the ALAs. We just using the freedom to read and the Bill of Rights right now. But yes, in that list, you could be adding some others in. And again, you're just going right in tune with the American Library Association. So there's room to grow right there. But you can see how we do it. So let's say right at the top of the list in October, staff would be looking, and obviously we're not going to change ALA's policies, but ADA again is a policy we have to follow. That's a federal thing. But anti-bullying we can recreate, right? And see if there's something we need to change. So staff would be looking at those policies in October. If they've got any recommended changes, we would be bringing that to the board for a first reading in November, and then we would be asking the board to approve it come their January meeting. So a 3-month process. The reason December gets skipped over is because sometimes we do, sometimes we don't have depending on the workload, we don't have a board meeting in December. So we put the approval ahead into January. So we're following this calendar now. So now that we're on an ongoing basis to make sure that all of these we've got eyes on in case something needs to evolve or change. So, and feel free to email and I can send you that stuff.
The next is mine, which is a lot more relaxed than Jim's. We review and adopt as needed. So you can kind of see how I have mine set up. It's just a table, a Word table. And if anybody wants a copy of it, you can certainly email me. I'll send it to you, but you can kind of get the gist of how we do it. You can see when we adopted it, and then you can see when we reviewed it, and then when we updated it and amended it. So this is something that is ongoing. And this is where going back to my very first slide that I talked to you guys about, when you open up all your policies, decide what's going to be kept, what's going to go, this is a good place if you just build a table and start dropping them in, and then, kind of give you some kind of a guide that will help you to see where you're at with your policies. I saw a question. So, okay, yeah, Jessica, you're not necessarily required to, but we do advise you to just take a look at it. If it looks good, smoking is not allowed on the campus. Boom, I'm not going to review that one, but I'm just gonna make sure, just want to kind of look through all of them and just make sure that they are good and still in compliance.
Kathleen had up there too, Betsy. Kathleen had up there about the financial manual for Illinois libraries. And I know that thing's pretty old now. I know at the other office, at the other building, I've got a copy of that. I don't know if there's any immediate plans to change the financial manual. Kristen or Betsy, I'm not sure if there's any work on the financial manual for Illinois libraries being done.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But I will say in the standards, we are going to have a section on finance. So there will be some, we're going to be listing all the policies that you should have for finance and budget oversight and spending oversight in this time, the next standards edition. So that's going to be helpful. All right. The next slide.
I think the next one's just question. Oh no, what did I do? Never mind. Oh, it is me. Questions to ask. Okay. First and foremost, question to ask. Do you need to have a policy manual? Perhaps you don't need to have a policy manual, but I would say that no matter how big or small or rural or suburban or urban you are, you definitely need to have some policies to make sure that your library is running effectively. So does it need to be as big as the examples that Betsy and I just shared? Probably not, perhaps not, but I would say you need to have some. So anyway, evaluate that as needed. Again, does a policy manual fit the needs of your library? And that's the first question you have to ask. You don't have to just start creating policies. You really should be asking, the why behind that before you dig in. If you do have them, then evaluate them on a regular basis. And that third box there, really take a look at them. I think Betsy mentioned it a little bit, but as we're talking about equity, as we're talking about inclusion, you just make sure you're not putting. It seems like libraries have done a really, really great job. Not it seems like we have done a really great job of evolving to make, taking away fines, to allow more people to get cards, to do as best we can to expand our reach and our access. So we're all moving in the right direction. So just be looking at your policies so that in case you do have things that are blockades to providing service to everyone, make sure you're taking those out of your policies the best that you can. And then the last thing, remember that these are your laws, and I say that laws in quotes. These are your laws for the library. So just make sure as you read them that you would be able to defend them. You don't want to have any silly policies in there that really hold no water, that you couldn't defend, that make no sense. So if you're going to have them, make sure they're good ones, okay?
Before you go further, I know Laura mentioned the sexual registered sex offenders. I would encourage you to be careful with that policy, but we do follow the local, state, and federal laws on that. So a registered sex offender who's allowed to be in the library, and if you're in a large library like ours, they have a lot of places they can go. Obviously, if you're in a small library, then yes, that's something that you might want to look at. If there's a certain feat that they have to be from the children's department or from your park or things like that. So that is something to be aware of. But as far as having your own policy, be careful with that because they have rights too. So just make sure that you talk to your attorney about something like that, if that's something that's important to you.
I'll build on that just a little bit. It's not a direct correlation, but I once had an attorney say, how we will bar or ban whatever term you use. You might have to tell some patron that's done bad things or whatever that they can't come in. It sticks in me to this very day that you cannot. They highly recommend you cannot ban somebody from the library forever. Right? You can say it's 3 months or 1 year or whatever, but to just say that you can never come back into the library. I don't remember the scenario, but I had the attorney say, no. You can't kick. That's a civil liberty kind of thing, and you can't go that far. So put a time frame on it. not just say you're banned from the library forever.
All right, we have 5 more minutes, so we're just gonna keep on going. If there's any other questions, yes, yeah, Laura, yeah.
Oh, okay, Freeport, okay.
All right. Okay.
Oh, all right, yeah, so now we're just on to the fun stuff. You know, I always like to have, when we're doing this in person, some silly and some good examples, but you know, this one probably came from a school library, I assume, but you know, kind of cute. You know, listen to the librarian, always walk, never run, your manners are appreciated. So this could work in the big public library too as well. But here's some fun signs. And the next one, I really like the next slide because of just the clarity here. So you don't want to be putting up signs that have super fine print that you have to lean into. And, you know, so if you're putting your policy into a sign, make sure it's crystal clear. This one has some great imagery to go along with the yes, no's, yeses and no's. But, you know, if you're going the next step to taking it off of your, you know, policies that are in a notebook and putting it up on the wall, make sure they're crystal clear and attractive. You know, don't just put up some text on the wall. And the next one, obviously, libraries are for everybody, for everyone. So as we look at policies, make sure that we're removing any barriers to access. And the next one, again, is very pro-patron. I like how this one is worded, and this is actually from Oak Park. So again, you could just very easily take your Word document and blow it up and put it on the wall, but that's not very attractive, and it's probably addressing things you really don't need to address. So if you have somebody around that can make an attractive sign like this, and I love in the top in red, it says, yes, you can. So, you know, it starts with the positive and then kind of backs into things that you can and cannot do and where you cannot do that. So thought that was kind of a cool sign to put up. Now here's some strangely specific ones. I'm assuming this is in a college, probably library somewhere, but apparently they were eating spaghetti and that's a no-no. And then the last worst of all sign is no alcohol permitted in the library. So those were just some cute little signs that pulled off the internet. You know, but again, if you're putting up signs, make sure that it's worth it and make sure you're making them attractive and not taping them up by somebody that typed it up on a Word doc.
So as we wrap up, and I guess we can say a few minutes for questions. So if you have questions, start typing them up. But I would like to just refresh that. Remember, a policy is not a procedure. Use your team, if you have one, to create policies. The board must approve all your policies. So this could be as simple as, for us, sometimes it's as simple as we're going to, instead of charging $1 for a fax, we're going to charge $0.25. That's a policy change. The board has to approve it. So when you're amending your policies, make sure that they have to go to the board for approval. All the policies have to fit your community. No 2 libraries are the same. So you don't always want to just, copy your neighbors. Make sure your policy fits what you're doing. Review your policies on a regular basis. Policies always evolve and change. Update or remove the old ones and create new ones as you need them. So, and I will see if we have any questions. Okay, if there are no questions, then I guess we are good to go. We did it. Well, we have 2 minutes.
Thank you all. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, just reach out if anything comes up and you have questions or you just want some samples or that kind of thing. I've often found that instead of, like, if you're on the director's listserv, just sending that to everybody, typically you get better responses if you just pick 5 or 7 and send them an email. You'll get kind of better responses because not everybody is comfortable putting it out onto the listserv. So, send an email to a couple local people, a couple people that are not in your area, and you often get quick response to, here's a bunch of samples or examples for whether it's a policy question or something else.
Thank you so much, Betsy and Jim, for your time today. This has been really informative. We will have the recording on YouTube. I will put the link up on the Small and Rural Libraries Forum website. And if you have any other further suggestions for future meetups, please let us know or attend any of our meetings. It's a very open group and very inclusive. So we look forward to seeing all of you. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their afternoon and be safe.
See you guys later.
Goodbye, all.
Bye.
Bye.